Mathematics plays a central role in the modern world, and it helps us to understand the world through patterns, relationships, and possibilities. The world is interconnected, and math shows us these connections on a daily basis. Math helps us understand the world, and we use the world to understand math. As such, college students need to perceive it as part of any scientific endeavor, understand the nature of mathematical inquiry, and become acquainted with key mathematical concepts and abilities.
Patterns in counting are correlative. Counting happens when there is pattern, and when there is counting, there is logic. Therefore, pattern in nature goes with logic or logical setup. Please take note that there are reasons behind a certain pattern. That is why recurrently some people develop an understanding of patterns' relationship and function and use them to represent and explain real world phenomena, and mathematics exist everywhere, as patterns do in nature. Moreover, patterns can be sequential, spatial, temporal, and even logistics.
What is a logic pattern? It is the ability to discover meaningful patterns in strange and unpredictable situations. You use pattern logic intuitively when you enter a strange space, like a new job. You spontaneously search for patterns to influence how you think, act, and speak in the new space. Logic pattern or pattern logic also means being able to use patterns to make meaning and take action is what we call pattern logic. It is a set of numbers, words, objects, and etc. following in a sequence with some sort of relation between two consecutive sets, like these images. Yes, these are examples of pattern logic. But what is the importance of this pattern logic or logic pattern? Of course, it helps us develop important skills such as critical thinking skills and logic skills.
A number pattern is a pattern or sequence in a series of numbers. This pattern generally establishes a common relationship between all numbers. For example, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on. To solve the problem of number pattern, we need first to find the rule being followed in the pattern. Try to see the difference between consecutive numbers. It will help us understand the relationship between the numbers. Here we got the numbers in a pattern by skip counting of 5. Another example, in this pattern, every term in the sequence has grown or increased by 6. So we can get the next term by adding 6 to the previous term. Another one is this. Every term in the sequence has been reduced by 3, so we can subtract 3 from the previous term to get the next term. Number patterns are not restricted to a few types. They could be ascending, descending, multiples of a certain number, or series of even numbers, odd numbers, and etc.
In this world, a regularity column 2018 is the fact that the same thing always happens in the same circumstances. While a pattern is a desirable regularity in the world, or in a man-made design, the elements of a patterns in nature are visible, regularities of form found in natural world. These patterns include symmetries, trees, spirals, meanders, waves, foams, tessellations, cracks, and stripes. A geometric pattern is a kind of pattern form of geometric shapes and typically repeated like a wallpaper design. There are two common categories of patterns, the repeating pattern and the growing pattern. Regularity in the world.
According to Einstein Watts in 1995, we live in a universe of patterns because every night, the stars move in circles across the sky. The season cycles at yearly intervals. Tigers and zebras are covered in patterns of stripes. Leopard and hyenas are covered in patterns of spots. Colored arcs of lights adorn the sky in the form of rainbows, and a bright circular halo sometimes surround the moon on winter nights. And no two snowflakes are ever exactly the same. Human mind and culture have developed a formal system of thoughts for recognizing, classifying, and exploiting patterns, and we called it mathematics. By using mathematics to organize and systematize our ideas about patterns, we have discovered a great secret. Nature patterns are not just there to be admired. They are vital clues to the rules that govern the natural processes.
Symmetry. It is the agreement in dimensions due to proportion and agreement in mathematics. Symmetry means that an object is invariant to any of the various transportations, including reflections, rotations, or scaling. Spiral. It is a curve which eliminates from a point, moving farther away as it resolves around the point. Meander. It is one of a series of irregular curves, bounds, turns, loops, or windings in the channel of a river, stream, or other water course. A meander is produced by a stream or a river as it corrodes the sediments comprising an outer concave band.
A fracture or crack is the separation of an object or material into two or more pieces. The fracture of a solid usually occurs due to the development of certain displacement, discontinuity surfaces within a solid. It is called a shear crack, slip band, or dislocation. Stripes are made by a series of bands or stripes, often of the same width and color along the length. A fractal is a never-ending pattern. They are created by repeating a simple process over and over in an ongoing feedback loop. Fractal patterns are extremely familiar since nature is full of fractals, for instance, trees, rivers, coastlines, mountains, cloud, and etc.
Name is a consists of acceleration or vibration of a physical medium or a field around relatively fixed location. It is a disturbance that transfers energy to matter or a space. Next is a foam, a substance formed by trapping particles of a gas in a liquid or solid in mass form. The volume of gas is large with thin films of a liquid or solid separation, the region of gas. Thus, its acceleration can be generalized to a higher dimension and variety of geometrics. It is a flat surface. It's the feeling of plane using one or more geometric shape.